So, hello everyone, nice to meet you all. My name's Alex. I lead Google Cloud's AI and data ecosystem in EMEA.
And hi everyone, second Alex or Sasha. I'm a director of consulting and data here at Artefact, and mostly working with our data science demos and projects that we're doing.
Okay, cool. So I thought, well, so one of the nice things about working for a tech vendor is I get to see what everyone's actually doing in reality versus sometimes the PR announcements you hear from customers, because we can see what things they're actually utilizing, which is quite nice. So I thought this evening, rather than do, you might expect the Google guy to turn up and spend a lot of time talking about models in detail. Rather than do that, I thought I'd go through some of the kind of themes that we're seeing, what people are actually doing. So when you're talking about generative AI, how do you get away from 30,000 foot abstracted? What are all the things that you can do with AI type stuff, but also not down in how many parameters does your model have? What is it that people are actually doing? And how can you think about that as organizations based on what we're seeing customers doing? So hopefully that'll be interesting for you. So just to start, let's see if this works. Just so we'll start this video. So this is, I'll do a voiceover, apologies, you don't get the nice descriptive one. So this is a demonstration of the Google models that can take up to 1,000 tokens. So that's very large context windows, so images, texts, that sort of multimodal stuff. So in this example, what's happened is we've uploaded a 45-minute movie, a Buster Keaton movie, also, and then asked the model through text to find a moment when a piece of paper is removed from the poster's pocket and tell some key information about the time code. So the model's gone away, it's looked at the video that's been uploaded, and then based on that prompt has found the moment when a piece of paper is removed and read the text from it. So in a second, we'll just see if that works. This video, by the way, is just a screen grab. This isn't like, it's not sort of adjusted at all. They sped it up slightly, so you don't have to wait the minute for it to run, but this is a live video. So you can see there, that text has been found in the video based on the image and then read. So a second example here is it's asking what's the time code when this happened. So there's a sort of slightly dodgy drawing there of a sort of man underwater that's been uploaded. And again, it's found the timestamp for that. And there you go, you can see it's found that from there. But the point of this demo, and the reason I thought it was just helpful to show it is, this is quite amazing. I think personally, this wasn't possible 2 years ago. Like you couldn't, if you just look at the top there, it's a AI studio you can use, you can access this. This is an open service. You couldn't do that kind of analysis with that kind of level of data without any training at all a few years ago. So the reason I wanted to show that was just, it's a really exciting thing here. Like when we talk about like what people are actually doing, all the challenges of organizations, it's an exciting place just to start to think, give this a few years time, how much that would change a lot of stuff that we do. Okay, so why is this exciting? So one thing that's just maybe helpful to start off with is a brief couple of thoughts on why this is different. So one of the conversations I quite often hear customers saying is, well, AI is not new. You've been talking about AI for 5 years, 10 years. Google's had AI principles since 2017. Why is this different now? So historically, I think when we thought about AI, often we were talking about there's a problem. I go away, I build a model and it solves it. So I've got a solution. So in the examples that we saw earlier, where I was talking about image classification and how that's actually been available for a long time, that's based on building a model to identify a specific thing. What's different about these models is that one model, because it's been trained on such large data sets and has such broad general reasoning capability, is able to solve many problems. Why does that matter? It means that the marginal cost of using those models, even though the initial training cost is high, goes down. And when marginal costs go down, demand goes up. So the reason this is different is partly because the technology is very clever, but what's really going on is that the cost of utilization of AI is falling, and so that's why we're seeing it proliferate. So that's one of the key things to remember when you're thinking about how you use this. It's going to end up being everywhere because the cost has come down so much rather than necessarily a specific thing. And just a comparison to that would be the LED. I think in this room, everything's got light bulbs on it, yeah? Think about all the devices in your home, everything has a light bulb on it. That's because the LED brought down the marginal cost of production for light bulbs. So you see that cost falls and utilization goes up. And that's what we're seeing here through large language models with AI. The challenge with that is it's kind of abstract. So we say, oh, wow, I can do all these amazing things. And I'm sure, anyone who works in this space and works around AI gets lots of questions from their friends and family about what is this AI thing? Is it going to take our jobs? What's going on? You start to get into it, start talking about it. My father often grills me on this, and very quickly it gets complicated. You get into another tech stack. Are we talking about, TensorFlow? Are we talking about bots? It gets very complicated. So what I thought would be helpful to talk through some ways you can think about structuring it as an organization, some different areas to think about AI. That's just not an abstract, the board are asking me, are we doing AI? Let's do AI type conversation. There are 4 key themes that we've seen come out with customers. First one is data. Second one is building things. Third one is buying things. And the fourth one is people and productivity. So I'm going to go through each of those quite quickly, talk about the pattern we're seeing, and then give you just a little view on how we're approaching it as a result. So first of all, data. So I think everybody here, I'm sure, gets that data is very important. Most organizations have clear data strategies. We get all those euphemisms like data is the new oil, which I hope isn't, things like Horizon and all those terrible oil spills, but conceptually, people talk about it in that sense because it's very high value. Yeah, we all care about it. Data and AI are intrinsically linked. We see that often with our customers, and there's a few reasons for that. The first reason that we've seen with that is that if you're using these models off the shelf, you're giving up all your competitive advantage. All that stuff that you've done over the last few years to build insight, gather information, your customer list in a very trivial sense, all those things are what are your commercial edge versus me setting up a business. I can pull an off-the-shelf model and go and use it. And so when you're using these tools, you want them to be grounded in your information so that you're getting that competitive insight, and also so that what you're serving up is factual. We've all seen those funny instances of hallucinations. We just saw a couple of them where these models come out with random stuff. You want it to be tied to actually your data, your understandings in the organization. So those things are connected. The second reason that this is, we see data and AI as being very connected is around unstructured data. So unstructured data is examples like that video we had, things that historically is hard to get insight out of, written text, documents, images, video, not nice, structured Excel or Google Sheets, spreadsheets, kind of unstructured data. LLMs are extremely good at processing that sort of thing. So to give you an example, in my previous life before working for Google, I used to work in mergers and acquisitions. I sold a bank in France. We had a mortgage portfolio of several 100,000 mortgages. In there, some of them had a questionable term in the contract that was a problem. So we went to try and sell this mortgage portfolio. The buyer, who were a very friendly private equity firm from New York, were concerned about that in terms of valuing it. And we couldn't tell them how many of those contracts had that questionable clause in it because you can't read hundreds of thousands of contracts to check. So we had to guess, it gets valued in, it all gets a bit complicated. This is exactly the kind of thing that LLMs are extremely good at. You just upload all those documents, comes back with this percentage, have that clause in it. So that unstructured data, getting insight from that is a key use case, but you don't want to be moving that stuff around. If you've got these huge databases, huge sets of data somewhere, and you're going to move them somewhere else to do AI and then move back in, that's time consuming and expensive. The third thing that we've seen with customers around this is, in the past, a lot of stuff people did around AI was they had their data, they export their data from some system, send it over to an AI system, do some processing, do something, send it back again. It's very time consuming. I'm sure we've all been through that process. We have to export things, move them, process them, move it back, that sort of thing. Very, very time consuming. So you actually want this stuff sitting directly in with data. You want people not to be going and messing around with different systems to try and make that work and do that process of in and out of the different tools that you have. And the final thing that we've seen with customers is that system engineering is really hard. So if you're taking loads of different systems, plumbing them together, spending loads of time getting all that stuff to work, that starts to deplete the return you get from this stuff. So you come up with a great use case. We're going to use AI to do this thing, and then 60 man days worth of engineering efforts connected together later. Oh, that return is suddenly looking a little bit less exciting, especially if you realize on day 59 you screwed something up on day 1 and have to start again. And so that system engineering process is painful. So you can't separate data and AI very easily. That's the main reason that we've put data and AI together into an integrated platform. So we're the only people doing that. That's a key focus for us for that reason, so that you can effectively get value out of data and AI and enable the entire organization to use it. So one of the use cases we've heard lots of people talking about, people get very excited about, is natural language. So you want business users to better ask questions without having to go away, ask the BI team. They convert that into a SQL query, they run a query, they come back. that sort of stuff where you automate that just with natural language is much easier if all these systems are already connected. So you have consistent semantics. You understand what the words, the data means across different databases, and so you can trust and rely on the outcomes. So the second thing that we see people doing after data is building things, so enhancing what they build already. You saw that example at the start. Our expectations, I think, as users have all gone up. I'm sure all of us at some point have used something, got frustrated with it since we've had the kind of current AI revolution, and then gone, oh, why doesn't AI do this? That's like becoming an expectation because we just see it so much more regularly. So organizations, wherever they build things, either for their internal users or external users, are starting to go, okay, well, how do I integrate these capabilities? How do I get things like natural language? How do I get that automation coming through from my users, be they customers or be they employees? And so that enhancement of what you're doing already through those APIs is a key thing we're seeing people doing. One of the challenges with that is that it's very difficult to know what your developers are doing. Is it safe? We've all heard stories about the models. What are they trained on? Do you know where that model's come from? Do you know which model they're using? Is it being put into something that goes out to users where you haven't necessarily vetted the potential outcomes? Especially as these things get more sophisticated and embedded deeper into the applications that people are building, it's not necessarily always obvious what's coming out. An example that's come up recently is people are using models to produce synthetic data to train the next round of model. If you don't know that that's going on, you don't understand what's going on, all sorts of biases and problems can come out of that you're not necessarily thinking about. And so you get lots of concern around that and the liability for an organization in terms of doing that. There's a second problem in there. Is this even efficient? So I'm sure we all know like DevOps and these processes that organizations go through to try and make their developers efficient. This is new. So people playing around with this stuff may not be efficient. They're all building the same model again and again. They're all training the model and adjusting it themselves again and again. And there's no consistency across the organization to do that. From that perspective, one of the things that we've really focused on around this is not just looking at the models, but looking at the platform through which you consume them. So where you're getting this proliferation of many models, specialized models, open source models, all that flexibility, which is great, you need to have frameworks to do governance so that you can trust what people are using. You need to have protection to make sure they're not using things they shouldn't be using. You want automation tools to help them move between these models. So, a moment ago, we had a test comparison between, I think it was the Llama model and a couple of the different OpenAI models. That's going to keep happening, yeah. There's no Gemini, which I demonstrated there, only came out in December. So stuff is going to keep changing and moving forward. So if you want your developers to be efficient, you need them to have the tool set to be able to move things forward consistently. And that's a question about how you consume models, not which model you're consuming. And so thinking about that from an ML ops and platform perspective is one of the key things that we found customers are really focusing on. On top of that, I think people worry about the models themselves. So what's in the model? So do you actually understand that? Can you trust that and be comfortable with that? Our approach to that has been indemnity. I know some of the other model providers do that as well. So Google knows what data obviously went into the model and will indemnify against that. But it's something that's worth thinking about as an organization. And it's that kind of combination of model and platform that we're seeing a lot of focus on from users. Just as a kind of word of warning against that, I think one of the things we saw a lot of last year was people building solutions, new solutions, exciting things. All these amazing things we can do. Isn't it exciting? We're going to go and build something new. The challenge with that is that a lot of the things I think people built, whilst they're really good exercises in terms of learning what's going on and understanding what the capabilities might be, they're not things they built before. You might ask the question, if you didn't build this particular thing before AI, why would you build it now? A metaphor that I've used a few times for this might be, if you think about nails to screws as a technological advancement, you can do lots of things with screws that you can't do with nails. That's great. I'm not going to start building my own furniture. Yeah, I'm still going to go to IKEA. It's probably going to have screws in the chair I buy rather than nails, but I'm not going to start building my own just because that technology is now available. And lots of things I think that people have done over the last year, there's been an element of people building things to try it out, and they can get stuck in proof of concept for that reason, because you're not really prepared to go and do all the things you have to do to keep delivering this stuff over the longer term. I think what that then means for organizations is you should be challenging your suppliers. So, we know, because we're selling to them, that people like Workday are implementing all this stuff into their software. But if your software vendors that you're buying these solutions from are not implementing this new technology, then you may need to change your supplier strategy. That's something worth thinking about. Another analogy for that might be smartphones. If we think about when smartphones came out there was this initial surge of everyone being like, I need an app. And I'm sure we've all at some point been pestered by an organization for an app that we do not need on our phones. That's not interesting. Why do I need an app for my supermarket? But that kind of urge to do that, that wasn't the thing that people should have been focusing on. What they should have been doing was thinking about whether they had a good mobile website availability. Yeah. So the question was actually not, do I need to go and get an app necessarily? It was, can my web designer do good mobile design as well as desktop design for me? Because that's actually the thing that's come off the back of that. So when thinking about this stuff, it's not just a case of, I'm not going to build everything, I'm going to buy some things, but are my suppliers capable of keeping up with the expectations that I have now, given the new technology? The last area that we're seeing a lot of activity from customers around is around people and productivity. So, people are really important in the space. Although there's lots of worry about what's going to happen to jobs and stuff as a result of AI, and I think a lot of that is slightly missing the point. People are really important in terms of how this stuff actually comes out for a couple of reasons. On one end of the spectrum, you've got a challenge with people being afraid of this technology and unwilling to use it. Just as a slight anecdote, I was speaking to a large consultancy that used Google's Workspace, so our Office equivalent solution, in consultancy. They are consultants who tell their clients about using AI. And so I just stopped them and asked them and said, okay, so you guys all use Google technology and you consult on AI. Put your hand up if you use the AI filtering in Gmail for your inbox. You could probably guess how many of them put their hand up. Yeah, so there's a challenge on one end of the spectrum of people being afraid of this stuff and unwilling to use it, and also unwilling to change their processes that they do every day to start using this stuff. At the opposite end of the spectrum, people will use this stuff unbridled, kind of permitted, how they've decided to use it, either because they think it's easier and it's helpful, or because they may be being lazy and they don't want to necessarily do the things they're doing. It's just easier to use these tools to do that. A trivial example of that was I was asked to give feedback on someone at work. I was going to give negative feedback. It was a small group. It was anonymous, but small group, negative feedback. I didn't particularly want it to be obvious that it was me giving that feedback. So I wrote my feedback, stuck it in Gemini, and got it to rephrase it. So it came back in a tone of voice that wasn't my own. So you wouldn't better read it and go, that's Alex kind of thing. You know what I mean? In terms of giving the feedback. That's a trivial example. That's not harmful. And I put it as like Google's tool. So it's hardly going to be something where they're going to say I'd gone outside the guardrails. But people will use technology without you permitting it. Some of it won't be safe. Some of it won't be approved by the organization. And so as part of that, you've got to think about what tools you are giving people so they don't need to go and find things that they found on the internet that they think are useful. And also make sure they understand the risks of using those tools. Our perspective on that is to think about a couple of things. One of them is around the importance of the core productivity suite they're using. So I'm sure if anyone here uses the Google stuff at home, so Gmail, Google Docs, etc., you start to see all this AI stuff popping up in those tools. That's a key thing that we see people using every day. The other area that we're seeing people focus around this stuff is what you might call agents. So this is that set of tools and virtual assistants that sit alongside people, be they employees or customers, to help them be more productive and more effective in terms of what we're seeing on a daily basis. This matters because if you don't do that, as I said, one aspect will be they'll do it anyway. And so you've got the risk of do it with the sanctioned products or do it with the unsanctioned products. And also you just get a competition angle. Yeah, it's very frustrating to work for an organization where you want to use the new thing. I don't want to be writing something manually if I don't have to. And I could go somewhere else and they're using, code assistance tools to help me code faster and more effectively. If my organization says you can't use that, that's frustrating, isn't it? I myself have to do a bit of querying work, a bit lazy writing queries. The autocomplete of queries is really useful. If they got told you have to take that away, they double the amount of time I spent on it, then I might not want to do that anymore. So it's not simple to just say, oh, well, we're just going to be careful. No one can use it until it's all decided and clear. If you're not thinking about it now, then your employees start to react accordingly. Okay, so I think hopefully that was interesting. I'm going to hand over to Sasha for a demo.
Thank you. Thanks. So yeah, this part of the session is supposed to be interactive. So as soon as you have any questions, please raise your hand. I will be happy to answer them. We're going to take a look at an example of how actually using Google technology a couple of months ago, we were building a very interesting tool that was used by the sales representatives of a big agriculture resale company. Their main business is to find the right equipment for the right farmer in the right time, deliver it so that people can work better, can work more comfortably. Now, let's imagine you're a sales representative of this company. It doesn't make you a pro in all of the agricultural equipment. And also, depending on what the farmer is raising, what they're doing, maybe they need a different type of equipment. Maybe they need a different type of, wheels. Maybe they like a different color. You don't know if you have it or not. So previously, this is a completely blocking point. If you don't know something, you don't know something. You don't know, you don't sell. And now, what we see here is a tool. And imagine that I'm a sales rep, right? I'm right now in my car. I'm going in the middle of the central France. I'm doing my autoroute, 130. I'm always late, of course, because I have 1,000 things to do. And I'm going to these farmers that are raising, whatever you want, daisies. And to be honest, I have no clue if I'm going to find a lot of them in the city where I'm going, but I'm going. So I need to double check. But I'm still driving a car, right? So it's not that I can go type things. I cannot go query my database. I can't do anything. I just press record and I record my request. And I talk to this one over there, and I'm asking this machine, hey, I'm going to Isedan. Am I going to find a lot of farmers there? And the machine is rephrasing it back to me. I'm still driving a car, checking my speed limits and everything. And that it just drops me a message. Did you mean that? Yeah, I did mean that. And then what the machine does, it goes back to BigQuery. It's the place where all the data is stored for my company, and it queries it for me. So what does it do? It democratizes data. And for this specific case, it unlocks additional revenue because, as I mentioned before, you don't know, you don't sell. You don't know there are people in Sudan, you pass it. But you had there 67 farmers that you could have talked to. And then you can continue your research as you go, right? Okay, so 67 people, so what do they do? What are they raising? What are their needs? What did I sell to them before? All of that you can do while you're driving the car to Isedan. So that's really helpful, and it covers the need that people had before, but it was not available and was not as accessible before Gen AI. And you can really easily connect it to the existing stack that you have, and you do unlock a lot of this potential in the business, not only reducing the cost and driving the productivity, but also unlocking new opportunities that you wouldn't be able to have before. So now hopefully we have a lot of happy sales reps in this company. Hopefully we have a lot of happy farmers with a lot of needs covered. And that's the use case.
So the thing I really liked about that is I thought it captured both the data aspect and how important using your data is. Like if you take that example, if anyone's worked in sales, like the difference between knowing whether there's a buyer there or not is great. But also the importance of the people aspect and the productivity angle for those sales guys. So they'll maybe just to wrap up before we hand over, summarize what we said. I think there was 4 things really that we've seen as themes coming out with with lots of customers in this space. Empowering data, so helping think about data when you think about AI. Enhancing what you build, so don't take up new hobbies. Let's start building things that you're not going to sustain long term. So it's a good way to spend your budget without getting something off the back of it. Are your suppliers leading the way? So the products that you buy in the space, the kind of complete solutions, are they utilizing this technology or not? So you're thinking about that. And then lastly, enabling your people. That QR code there, if you want to, that's got some links to some more interesting things around there. So white paper from Artefact, a list of 101 use cases for Gen AI from last week. If you're interested, or we can always share the slides later as well. Thank you.
Just one last thing to add. Read the white paper. It's very interesting. We've interviewed a lot of people, a lot of leaders in the industry. Many of them might have shared the same sentiments as you. It's always interesting to see what other leaders in the business are thinking and how they're feeling about Gen AI, because we know it's fancy, but at the same time, a lot of people are, not feeling at ease necessarily. So please do read. It should be really interesting. Thanks.